This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello, everyone. This is Barbara Vocatis, host of Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, a podcast on education, innovation in education. I invite incredible people to my show, sometimes teachers who actually innovatively teach in the classroom. But not only, I love to talk to people who are neurodivergent because I think they can contribute a lot to making education better. And today, no difference because we have a fabulous guest. Her name is Jennifer Hill. Jennifer, welcome on my show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.
Thank you, Dr. Barb. It's so good to be here with you and your audience.
You're welcome. I'm just so delighted and excited about your presence because to me, you are just a very different person from anybody I can see out there. I mean, literally, your experiences, your interests, what you're doing, and also knowing that you are neurodivergent, it just puzzles me sometimes. It literally puzzles me. I had these questions. How was she able to do this? Like, because these days, so many, and we know that this is not a secret, so many autistic people, it just kind of, many of them are unemployed. Many of them are not really in a very good sort of state of mind for a variety of reasons. And unfortunately, I think that education contributes to some of these feelings. And you have experiences too. So I would like to talk a little bit about this. But again, it's like I got this puzzle about you. Like, how is she who she is? You know what I mean? It's just, it really is puzzling a little bit. And I would like to tell our wonderful audience a little bit about Jen. So she's an entrepreneur, executive coach, speaker with over 20 years of experience. And actually, you had your own, the first company that you had, you exited in 2018. So you have a lot of entrepreneurship in your experiences. Jen is a recognized expert, appeared on KNX Radio, BBC News, ABC, NBC, Fox, and E! News. I used to watch E! News like, oh my gosh.
Years ago. That was like 15, 20 years ago. I think it was 2009 when I appeared on E! News.
That's so. Maybe I saw you at that time, but I remember when I arrived in the United States, some of these channels, you know, I come from Poland. We didn't have that, so I was just fascinated with some of these TV networks and channels, and I watched them some of this so religiously. It's really kind of weird,
Yeah, it's
but it was.
hilarious. I don't even remember. I did a lot of television when I was younger. I did shows on MTV, ABC,
Yeah.
NBC. My first wedding was even on television. It's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh. So there is so much more to you. I don't know, Jen. This sounds like a material for 10 episodes on Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. But you know what? People will get seriously inspired. That's one thing I know for sure. And also in 2021, Jennifer co-founded OptiMatch. And that's what it is, an algorithm revolutionizing human connections in business by matching people using motivating factors. Again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because this is just like so cool, but also it's outside of my academia, right? Even though I'm trying to kind of like not to be stuck in one place, but or area of expertise, but this are just so cool. And Jennifer is also a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, and she hosted a 17-part series with Deepak Chopra, such a well-known figure, obviously throughout the world, and Don Hoffman, entitled Conversations at the Intersection of Cutting-Edge Science and Spirituality, which can be found on Humanity's Stream. And like the longer I live, the more connection I see between science and spirituality. Hey, so that's just like my vibe too, a little bit, increasingly, Jen. Welcome on the show again. I'm just like so inspired with your background. But I have to ask right away, it didn't start like that. All these speaking, incredible opportunities and all the work you did and are doing as an entrepreneur and reinventing yourself too and collaborating with incredible people. But you didn't know you had autism. in
Mm.
school. And I just wanted to ask you, like, how did not knowing really played out? And I know it's probably not going to be, you're probably going to share some dramatic experience, but we need to hear this. And also, the second part of the question will have to be, what moved the needle for you as far as believing in yourself more and getting slowly onto the journey that you are on right now?
Thank you,
Huge
Dr. Barr.
question.
I got it. I got both parts of it. So, to answer your question of what was it like growing up and not knowing I was on the spectrum, it was challenging. When I was a little girl, Dr. Barb, for me, it was like you got a book on how to be a human, and he and she got books on how to be a human. But when I opened mine, it was blank inside. And I'm actually writing a book that'll be coming out next year. And in the book, I share what it was like for me to come out, to be a little girl and to not know how to connect with people. And my life's work has been trying to understand myself and one another because people were just a mystery to me. And my brain, I've been very, very, very lucky to be high functioning. So despite not knowing I was autistic, I was always placed in advanced classes, AP classes. I left high school at 16 to go straight to college. So I was always, there was something called GATE programs, like gifted something, something or other. So they knew that there was something different about me. But I was so crushingly lonely, Barbara. When I was young, I felt safest with the special needs kids. Not knowing I was autistic myself, I would literally volunteer my time at lunch to go work with the special needs kids, or I'd just be reading books like my life depended on it in the library. And as I started to get older and notice I was always alone, I just wanted to fit in. That was it. I was like, please let me just be normal. And I couldn't be normal. I never even went to a prom or a school dance. I don't think I ever went with a date because I was so socially awkward. And then I met a friend, and like she was popular, but she was also a bit, I guess you could say Mean Girls. If you've ever seen that movie with Lindsay Lohan, Mean Girls.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so grateful though, just to be accepted by anybody that I became kind of like her minion and I would follow her around and mimic all the things she did. So being autistic and not knowing I was autistic, I found that I was always mimicking what normal was supposed to be. I'd be like, that looks normal. Okay, somebody does that and then they get attention. So I'll do that and then I'll get attention too. And yeah, most of my adult life was going on and on like that until about 7, 8 years ago. I got diagnosed by a dear friend of mine. Dr. Mark Golston was the first person to diagnose me as being high functioning. And then I looked back and I was like, oh, and then so many of my best friends, of course, it turns out if you're neurodivergent, most of your close friends are. And I remember the first time I called my friend Emily and I'm telling her, I'm like, Emily, I'm autistic. And she's like, you're not even half as autistic as I am. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So we just started laughing. And then about a year ago, one of my best friends, a present day best friends, KJ, went through a process and she's like, oh, Jen, you should, try to retake the autism test. So my husband and I took it. My husband had never been formally diagnosed, but is even more on the spectrum than I am. And sure, it was a test on a scale of 0 to 240 or something like that. If you're above 60, you're on the spectrum. And I kid you not, my number was 161 and my husband's number was 164. So we love that we're 3 points away from each other on the autism spectrum.
Oh my goodness. But Jen, what you just said, I mean, supposedly on the outside, everything was great, high functioning, you don't have really problems in schools. Of course, many autistic children do struggle in school. But this idea of I have to fit, I mean, we all try to fit something. It doesn't have to be, fitting the whole school. As I remember my child used to really want to have many, many friends. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have more friends than I had when I was in school, and I wasn't autistic. So I see, Jen, because the issue sometimes with innovation in education, we tend to think, more technology, all this kind of stuff. But I think that it would be great if we look at innovation, and also for teachers too, and anybody involved in education, and also including parents, was think about this concept differently. What if innovation sometimes was just what kind of mindset we teach to these children? Because you can, based on your experiences, trying to fit so desperately and not knowing at that time that what we know right now, it's better not to fit that much. It's actually really cool to be yourself, to be a little bit different, and maybe not worry so much about this huge circle of acceptance as friends. But nobody tells children that. Teachers will not tell them that either. I mean, you might be lucky, you might have a teacher who will empower you the way you are. And sometimes there are those teachers, especially like, arts teachers. There was a teacher who taught Adobe, I think, like artistic and technological kind of area, what was that? Adobe Photoshop to my child. She totally just understood the difference in my child, was able to embrace those differences, saw the talent, artistic talents, and they clicked. So they were the teacher was able to empower my kid. But in general, I see this as a missing piece really in school. And I wonder what you think about it. If you had a different approach as far as from teachers, you would have not been maybe as lonely at that time. And it doesn't matter if you were diagnosed officially or not.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I always share this story that came up when I was going into middle school. So I grew up in San Diego, and I was, again, always top of my class, learning things 3 years ahead. And fast forward, I was one of the three brightest, I guess you would call it, kids in our class. And I was invited to study with Rhodes Scholars in a castle for 2 years in middle school instead of going to traditional education. And it's ironic, and my mom and I joke about this now, but she and my dad said, no, of course we're not going to do that. She'd miss out on the whole middle school experience. And that was the experience that really crushed my soul. It was that period of my life was so crushing, not knowing what the social norms were and learning to mask. I think in some ways, I wish I would have gone to the Rhodes Scholar experience because my other classmates who did went on to be like geniuses, astrophysicists, whatever, right? And then in other ways, I'm so grateful that I didn't because out of necessity, out of survival, I had to learn the social norms, the cues, learn how to mask, learn how to be high functioning. It was out of survival. And so, in some ways, I am grateful that I didn't get that opportunity to go to this special school where they would have taught me in a different way. Because my biggest constraint when I was in school is my brain memorizes things almost immediately. And I couldn't, and I felt myself very annoyed and almost being a bit of a know it all with all the kids in class because I couldn't figure out why it would take a whole hour for them to get something that I could get in a matter of seconds. And it was years later, before I even got diagnosed as being autistic, I had a brain scientist in Orange County, California, look at my brain, and it turns out I have two alpha waves where most people have one. So if you look at a normal brain, it has one alpha wave in a healthy state between 8 and 12, and I happen to have two simultaneously happening 24/7. So I have no idea what relationship that has. It's very weird. But it's like, oh, and then years later, I got diagnosed as being autistic, but I always knew I was different, but it left me feeling crushingly lonely and never quite knowing how to be normal or how to fit in. And that's why I tried to take my own life 3 times between the ages of 17 and 21, is I just hated myself so much, Barbara. I hated that I just couldn't be a normal kid and couldn't just go to class and be the normal kid and just sit there and do the things you were supposed to do. That's just not how I was wired.
It's absolutely remarkable. But then during that period, was there any one person, one teacher, I don't know, counselor, or anybody in the educational system who was attempting to kind of like understand you, who was trying to maybe empower you? Was anybody like that ever crossed your path during I see that, I hear from you that middle school was the hardest. Was there anybody there, one soul, so to speak, education, and maybe not even a teacher, who knows, who attempted to empower you in any way?
So I'd say if you asked me teacher, I would say no. But if you asked me was there a person, it was my grandfather. So my grandfather passed away about 22 years ago. And if it hadn't been for my grandfather, I probably wouldn't have made it. I came very close to taking my own life a couple of times, very, very, very close to dying. And I was so lucky. What kept bringing me back was my grandfather, as he's the one who believed in me and who really had my back. And even though I'm sure he had no idea I was autistic, he was just like kind of my mama bear and would protect me. I had kind of a rocky relationship with my parents, growing up. They were both alcoholics, both doing the best they can. My mom and I are still in great touch now, and we stay in very close communication every day. And my dad passed away a year ago, and I made peace with them. But when I was growing up, I think I just didn't feel safe at home. And so being with my grandpa was probably the closest I felt to being safe.
Well, I have to say, so sorry that nobody in school was able to reach out. And again, I mean, these people knew what they knew
They were doing the best they
about
could.
teaching.
Yeah, everybody was doing the best they could. I hold
Yeah,
no ill will. I hold no regrets. I hold no
right.
resentment, bitterness. I'm so deeply grateful for every teacher that didn't pay attention to me because it taught me to be resilient. And I think
Mhm.
that's the message I would give to any teachers, any parents of autistic children, and anybody who's autistic or on the spectrum out there. Teach your children resilience, because that has been what has saved my life as an adult, is having we were just talking before we went live. I have literally 183 tools that I use. Heart focused breathing is my number one tool from HeartMath that I use every single day. I teach it to all the executives I work with. When I do speaking engagements, I often include it in that. And so that's number one, is teach your children, teach yourself, teach your students how to become resilient. Teach them how to get in a state of coherence, because so often I didn't know what an autistic meltdown was until years later when I got diagnosed, and I looked back at my life, and my life was literally just one autistic meltdown after another, of just oversensitive. Oh my God, something does that. I used to scream at people, Barbara, even as an adult, clearly not knowing I was autistic yet. But God forbid I'd be staying at a hotel and they didn't have coffee and creamer in the room. I would be in tears and shaking and sobbing and not know, because it would interrupt my very specific morning routine that I had to go through.
Yeah.
And if I had to leave the room to disrupt it, I would be shaking and sobbing. But now I travel with coffee and creamer. So now I'm like, oh, I'm autistic. Okay, I need this to feel safe. So I now, if you ever look at my suitcase, you will see coffee and creamer and food so I can take care of myself so I don't have the meltdown.
Yeah, I think this is very important how you figure out some strategies. And it's not just knowing about this, but just like actually using them. That is definitely what is a struggle right now currently with my child too, because yes, something doesn't work in the morning, cannot find something. And it's just like this meltdown going on. And trying not to run to them right away either, because just because they scream, it doesn't mean that they cannot handle it. But that actually also means that when we think about teachers teaching, obviously they have a lot on their plate, but about resilience, about how to empower, knowing about how to build resilience in students, that's something that should be a big part of really teacher education. And I'm a teacher educator. So it's a lesson for myself too, as I speak with you, what I can tell my students, because these days they encounter all kinds of children and there's a lot of anxiety going on in kids too, even the smallest ones. So, how do you help them? Also, how do you build resilience in them? This is very tricky. And there is a lot of, maybe there is some information about how to parent a so called regular child. But with autistic children, it is very tricky because they need more empowerment. They need more love. Sometimes if their self-esteem is so low from whatever it is, education, and then yet you have to build resilience. You know what I'm saying? You've got like these things, two things that you're trying to achieve. Empower them, show them the love, but at the same time build their resilience. It is very difficult to do both at the same time.
I would encourage people, just speaking from life experience and the many people I've mentored and helped discover that they were on the spectrum, and friends with children on the spectrum, is step one is resilience, really, bar none. And this goes for all human beings. I don't care if you're neurodiverse or neurotypical or whatever you want to call yourself or however you identify. If we all had better skills, better coping skills for being human, better coping skills for being resilient when parents go through a divorce, when you lose a loved one, when you get an F on a paper. If we can teach kids resilience, then a byproduct of that will automatically become empowerment, because their sense of self-worth will not be tied to external circumstances, and then you'll teach them how to be their own best friend. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's really, this is what I teach adults. It's what I teach friends who have children struggling with this. Be your own best friend. Teach yourself. I'll give you an example from the science side of it. The reason this happens, Barbara, is we have the three parts of the brain. We, of course, have the amygdala, the reptilian part of the brain, the lower part of the brain, the fight, freeze, flee, fawn sort of brain. Then we have the midbrain, the mammalian part of the brain, which is, are you safe? Can I trust you? Are you like me? And then we have the upper, the neocortex and the prefrontal cortex, which is imagination, creativity, love, confidence, all these wonderful things we all desire. But what most people don't know, Barbara, is that the higher brains can't function until the lower brain feels safe. So I don't care how many times people want to go and try and teach a kid to be empowered. If you can't quiet their amygdala and teach them how to regulate their nervous system first, whatever you're doing is going to be icing on mud, because you first have to teach them how to quiet the amygdala. Then you have the capacity for empowerment, self love, acceptance, all these wonderful things that we're striving for. But if you don't first calm the nervous system, calm that part of the brain, tell it it's safe so you can access those higher parts of your brain, it's going to be a failed attempt.
Thank you so much for this mini lecture right
I
now.
love this. I teach this in a lot of the classes and speeches I talk about.
This is something everybody can benefit from, like you were saying. But again, I would love to see schools paying more attention to this. Teachers should know about it. Counselors should know about it. Social workers, psychologists, to help children how to be resilient, to be able to offer them some strategies, how to calm yourself down, right? Not just by going to the counselor office or social worker office and just sitting down there and talking and having a conversation. That's important too, but having some strategies that would help these children, I think, because that's what all we all need to learn it. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that in many cases, children learn resilience not because it was taught intentionally in school, but accidentally by being treated the way they were treated in some circumstances. And that's really how you learned resilience until you were able later in life to find out more strategies, right? More skills and different things that you could employ yourself. So, what would you suggest for parents? And parents do have some influence as far as what happens in education in schools. Some of them don't know that they have influence, but they do. And there's teachers and there is school staff, administrators. What would be your biggest sort of piece of advice for all these entities and parties to start paying attention to in order to help all children, including neurodivergent children, building that resilience? Like, what would be some kind of like actionable number one step to take for them to even?
Easy, very easy. Go study heart math. HEARTMATH. My friend Dr. Roland McCready is the head scientist there. They've been studying heart brain coherence for over 40 years. It's taught in schools to astronauts, to firefighters, to doctors, to nurses, to first responders. The evidence, it's evidentially based, is incredible. That is why it's my number one go-to tool. I use it 100% every single day. There's not a day I don't use it. And I actually learned about it when I was doing a television show for them in 2020, and it was heartbreaking. I was doing interviews with doctors and nurses and people who during the peak of COVID were having to deal with patients who couldn't say goodbye to their loved ones, and they swore the number one factor in their being able to be resilient was using this heart focused breathing technique. It's very simple. You breathe into the count of 5, out to the count of 5, focusing the attention in the area of the heart or chest as you're doing so, imagining the heart itself is doing the breathing. And there's huge scientific evidence to back this. They've done countless, countless pieces of research. And what's really cool, actually, is they even did a study where they took 40 people, and this has been replicated many times, 10 groups of 4. And in each of those groups of 4, 3 people were taught this technique, heart-focused breathing, which puts the body in a physiological state of coherence, which is measurable. Then the 4th person who is not taught this, 100% of the time goes into a state of coherence. So imagine if you're a mom and a dad and you have a child who might be having a meltdown, if you too can get into a state of coherence, even if your child doesn't know how to do it, or even as teachers, if you can do this, then the other person becomes coherent.
And does the exhale, is it the same exactly amount of time as inhaling, or it needs to be longer? Because I think I heard all different.
This one's very simple. Into the count of 5, out to the count of 5 is the best
Mhm.
physiological response you'll get. But then if you want, you can do box breathing and other forms of this version of breathing.
Okay.
Even if you did in for 3, out for 3, the goal is to imagine the heart itself is doing the breathing, and that's what stimulates and helps put people into a state of coherence.
So breathing and this imagining, that specific imagining. I mean, it's so simple. Uh, well, I I think I knew more box breathing, so now I know a little bit more from you. But it's a very simple technique. It's just, yeah, definitely. I wish more people knew about it. Again, parents. Uh, and I'm trying with my kid too, this technique too. It's not so, mom, I know about it, okay, but you do it. So, but it's a really important one. Thank you so much, Jen, for this. And I know we're coming to the end of this particular episode. I would like you to tell our audience where you can be found on social media, where you can be followed, so people can find out more about you, because you are such an empowering person for the neurodivergent community. Anybody who struggles with being neurodivergent, many people do, they should look up to you. They should check your accounts, what you're doing, how far you went in life, really, in spite of so many, so to speak, low moments, but then they helped you even more in, being where you are right now.
Yeah, so if people want to connect, there are a couple ways you can do so. I write a weekly newsletter called Inspired Living Tools. If you Google Inspired Living Tools, it's on LinkedIn, you'll find it there. You can also go to my website, Jennifer, K as in kite, Hill, HILL.com, and subscribe to a newsletter there. And if you want information, if you want to find some heart-focused breathing meditations, inner child meditations, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is just like my name, Jennifer, Jennifer. K as in kite, HILL. And if you Google Jennifer Cahill, you'll find all the interviews I've done and everything that I've put out there.
That's so amazing, because we will be also able to put those important links in the show notes for anybody to really take advantage of this, and especially parents, neurodivergent children and teens, and everybody who is interested in it, because like you said, everybody can benefit from this technique. Thank you so much, Jen. It was such a wonderful moment to have you on the show and to learn so much from you, really. And I know this is just a start.
Yes, thank you, my friend. It was such a pleasure to be with you and wishing you and your audience well.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please don't forget to follow the show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, to get updates. And see you all on social media. Bye-bye, everybody. And bye-bye, Jen. Thank you so much.
Ciao.
This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.